without further ado, I'd like to welcome everyone to the August Blue Dragon Monthly Forum. Today is August the 26th, and we usually have this every last Wednesday of the month. And today we have a real special presentation for you. With us today is Colonel Ryan Ward, and he will be presenting his capstone project, which is a fantastic piece of work, I might say. Also, it's something very important, near and dear to us in the military. We have long seen how this particular airframe, which is designed by Boeing, but also requires Bell Helicopter and Rolls-Royce engines to put together what is called the Osprey. And that particular airframe has more accidents than just about anything else in the military. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Colonel Ryan Ward from the Air Force. Ryan, take it away and jump right in.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry about the time there, but hopefully we should be able to get through this. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Ward. I am about to be a retired colonel out of the U.S. Air Force. I was a pilot for my entire career. I flew the B-1 bomber for the first third, and then the MQ-9 Reaper, which is the big brother of the Predator unmanned aircraft. It looks about the size of an A-10. I was the initial cadre for that. And my final assignment was out here at NORAD US Northcom in Colorado Springs, where I was the Science and Technology Division Chief. So I had a pretty awesome career, but it's time to hang up the spurs and move on to different pastures, we'll say. I was looking for a skill bridge opportunity, which is a 3-month internship that the Air Force pays for. And I found Blue Dragon. And from my flying background and just my accident investigation skills, it sounded interesting. And I kind of hit it out of the park with that one. Really glad I did this. And what you're about to see today is the culmination of my BD3, which is a full root cause analysis of a problem set that is near and dear to me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Hopefully that is big enough. Let me see if I can, there we go. Okay. All right. So real quick first, today's problem is going to focus on the CV-22. I know a few people said they know what it is. Just for visual reference, this is what a CV-22 is. The idea is that it has helicopter-like ability where it can land and take off vertically. But then it also, as you can see, the prop rotors end up moving 90 degrees down, and it creates 3 times the amount of speed that a normal helicopter could. So in theory, it's an aircraft that should get our troops on target quicker and off target quicker, and get quite a few more of them while providing some new capabilities. What you're going to hear today is a little bit about one of the accidents that occurred, and I'm going to go to presentation mode now. Rather than walking everybody through every box on the board, I know that there have been a lot of changes and updates over the years for Blue Dragon, whether it be adding new things like systems inventory or even just using Lucid, which is a platform I'm using right now. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you how the investigation moves through the Blue Dragon 3 phases, from the evidence to questions to deeper causes, and then ultimately to the actions that are intended to prevent the recurrence. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and launch it. So this is the overall board itself, what it looks like in the end. We're going to zoom into the problem statement here. So on 29 November, that aircraft that you see right there, excuse me, call sign Gundam 22, crashed into the sea near Yakushima, Japan during a joint exercise. And as a result of that crash, unfortunately, the aircraft was destroyed and all 8 service members aboard were killed. Only 7 of them were ever recovered. So the 8th is unfortunately buried out to sea. The reason why I picked this, and a few of the folks that have gone through the program with me know, quite frankly, there's just been too many accidents and way too many deaths with this aircraft. You'll see in my timeline that there were issues both before this incident, and unfortunately, there have been incidents after this accident as well. And the services are just not finding effective ways to proactively solve the issue. This is a tri-service aircraft, so the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marines fly them. But just to give you a little perspective, so from 2025, the Air Force average Class A mishap, which is a full destruction mishap, was 1.65 mishaps per 100,000 flight hours. As of 2005, the CV-22 for the Air Force alone is at an 11.5 per 100,000 flight hours. So obviously, there are some issues here, and unfortunately, they have not been able to solve why these issues continue to occur. From the problem statement, I just want to, again, I'll zoom out a little bit here, right? So we're in phase one. Some of the things that I gathered from the start were the systems inventory. So there were 24 systems and documents and elements that I looked at. The key stakeholders, something to note with this, the key stakeholders evolved over time. It went from about 75 stakeholders down to the 10 that you see here. Obviously, the 10, some of them are groups. But one of the things that kind of showed itself to me is that as I continue to go through and build my inventory and get into the causal analysis, I realized, oh, I need to add this group, or oh, I can get rid of this group. And so it was kind of a mix and match playing with the key stakeholders, but it ended up on 10. Moving over now, whoops. So this is the human machine interface. So what I did here was after understanding the timeline, I went and found 20 aircraft systems or processes that are out there that are designed in a specific way to either execute the mission or to keep the air crew safe. And so as an example, I just want to quickly show one, this Echo 4 here, vibration structural life and engineering diagnostic system. So as you can see in the green here, in this example, it shows what specific regulation, in this case, Mills Standard 1530 Delta, not only dictates the performance of that system, but also tells you what the requirements are in order to fly it. And so for each of these, from that, you have a series of questions that you'll see that develop. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but you'll see this VS LED come to light quite a bit as I go through the board. So there are 20 of those that I analyzed. I also analyzed some behavioral analysis surveys. This was a little tricky one because this happened in the past. It is a control document within the Air Force. And so my ability to interview obviously has expired since this happened almost 3 years ago now. But they did do a lot of analysis and they did a lot of interviewing themselves. And so I actually collaborated and fused that information into my own version of a behavioral error likely situation survey. And so from that, as you'll see here, I gathered quite a few questions of areas that were considered error likely. As one example, inappropriate values, as you'll see here, habit patterns and mindsets and other things here. From there, I moved into my data analysis, and I got about that seemed to have some pretty interesting information, and I settled on 4 with 4 different themes here. But really what we're going to get after with these charts are the decision-making of the crew and some of the data that supported that, the decision-making of the systems and when it was going to alert the crew, and then also just the time that it has taken for the tri-services to get after some of these issues that they know have been known issues for quite a long time. Before I move into the timeline from that, what I was able to, you know what, I'm actually going to pop out and go to timeline first because it's better to explain the extent of causes after. All right, so I'm into the timeline here. What you'll see as I go through is this pink bar here is everything that happened prior to the accident. This is 1 day prior. This is the day of the accident. And then you'll see at the far end that there is also post-accident. Very quickly going over this with you, some things I want to highlight. The red stars here represent crashes where fatalities occurred prior to the incident. Over here is all the mission planning that was going on up to the day of the aircraft taking off. And then what ended up occurring here, so the first star that you see, which ties to that VS LED I talked about, is that at 1:46 on that day, the vibration elements within these systems showed that something was wrong. But as you can see here, that data was not available to the aircrew in flight, so that'll come into play a little bit later. And then the numbers that you see here are tied to what they call chip detectors or chip burns. And for very quickly with that, in gearboxes and in oil tanks, when there's ferrous metal that is detected, that can obviously do catastrophic damage to engines and to prop rotors. And so they actually have a way to energize and disintegrate and burn off those chips. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And in a lot of cases, if you have one chip, it's an indicator that you're going to have multiple chips after that. So this crew got 1, 2, 3 chip lights before a land as soon as practical criteria was met per their checklist. They opted to continue. There was a fourth one, a fifth one, a sixth one that now required a land as soon as possible. As they were working towards landing as soon as possible, they now got a chip detector fail advisory, which I put a 7+ there because once the chip detector fails, you have no idea how many chips are actually out there and if the system is burning them whatsoever. Unfortunately, this one did not end up well for them as they were coming in about a half mile from the runway. They ended up losing the entire thrust out of the left prop rotor, and the aircraft rolled left and was destroyed, and all members were killed. What you'll see after this is some of the recovery that occurred, and then see that as the fourth statement here, which I forgot to put a star, there's been yet another accident that has been tied to a prop rotor gearbox. This one where there are no fatalities, but there was $2.8 million in damage. So just a quick review of the timeline there. And now I want to get to, once we've done all of this within phase one, what I started analyzing is containing the event. And what this really comes down to is before the deepest causes are settled, we want to ask what conditions could currently allow this to happen again. And if we can get that information out there to leadership, then we can hopefully stop it while we're trying to troubleshoot the deeper seated causes. So some of the themes you see here, and I won't go all through all of them, but it's not just a crew response or equipment issues. It goes through enterprise and governance, mission and human performance, flight warning response, and then aircraft materials. So this represents, a slew of responses that leadership could take right now, as the Blue Dragon team continues to investigate. So that sums up phase one, which again, the output of phase one should be unbiased lines of inquiry. And now really what we do is we take systems inventory, we take the timeline, as well as the key stakeholder, the behavioral analysis and the charts. And we take all that data and we dump it down into phase two. And what you'll see in phase two is that there are multiple different categories that we group these questions into. So we have behavioral analysis, both from an at-risk behaviors perspective and an error-likely situation perspective. We have programs, processes, and procedures. We have equipment interface, which is the tools, material, and equipment. And then finally, we have the management control systems, which is really the oversight. So as you can see from that, I had quite a fun time putting this together. And really, what this phase is trying to do is get after, as you see right here, just this causal analysis that's human-centric. And this is where you take the AI lens off. A lot of AI is used to help formulate some of the timelines and some of the systems in phase one. But this is where the human needs to be involved and take not only the line of defense that each symptom that you've described from above has, but you take the symptom, you line it up to the line of defense that should have stopped it, and then you get into the lines of inquiry. And then, as I'm sure most of you remember, the idea of 5 whys that things like Lean Six Sigma discuss, we don't do that. We ask the whys until we get the answer that we need or until we hit a stopping point. And then from there, we can start gleaning out some common causes and root causes. As one just quick example, you'll see here that in the V-22 flight manual, they talk specifically about what chip indications mean and when land as soon as practical versus land as soon as possible happen. And so one of the sample ways of interrogating here would be, according to the CV-22 flight manual, this is what it says you need to do in those conditions. The symptoms from this accident are listed here. And as you can see, there were 1, 2, 3 successful chip burns without without the proper attention paid to what the line of defense is telling you. And so from that, we get our initial line of inquiry. How is the third chip and later indications interpreted against prescribed criteria? Everything you see in the yellow boxes after that are considered the answers that the crew gave. And in a case like this, it actually branches into multiple different answers. So that's just a quick overview of what we're looking at here from the phase 2 inquiries. And what that drove for me was to find 11 common causes, which you'll see here. And as a theme now, from here towards till the end, notice is that there are color codings that follow everything here. So we'll just take one as an example of this orange. So the orange, which is common cause 11, is that the left prop rotor gearbox catastrophically failed, causing a rapidly cascading failure of the drive system and asymmetric lift conditions. Where I got that from is that as I scroll through the chart, you'll see, as if I can find the orange, maybe I used orange as a bad example here. Yeah, let's go with red for now because orange, I believe, is only one or two. Common cause 3, weak closed loop ownership, escalation, mitigation, and verification. Where I got that from is because as you look here, you have 3 common causes right there, or 3 very similar answers at the end that lead to deducing that this becomes a common cause. The common causes then themselves are where we would then take and start talking amongst ourselves as well as with senior leadership and try to figure out if we can't get to the bottom of what some of the root causes of these common causes become. And so as you see again here, these are color coded so that the green, the off brown, and the blue show up in one root cause, and then so forth and so on. And we are also able to deduce not only 4 root causes, but 3 at the program level, which would be specifically incident tied, and then 1 at the enterprise level, which would be for the tri-services. Something that I want to note here before we move on to phase 3 is that what you're seeing on these charts is the star here are findings consistent with those documented in the official AIB report. Well, what you'll see from the common causes and root causes is you have 1, 2, 3, 4 common causes that represent everything that the AIB found. The other common causes are either not addressed at all, or they decided that they weren't common causes. And then for root causes, it really boils down to 1 root cause was what they decided this entire accident could be pinned on. Well, as you can tell, there are 3 more here, with this one being the most important in that they are lacking accountable closed loop safety risk governance, and they're not talking to each other as a tri-service. And because of that, what we're seeing is fragmented ownership and weak recurring oversight, which allows either drivetrain risk issues or just knowledge sharing to be inconsistent and in some cases not known at all between the services. So I thought that was interesting. And as you'll see here, the 4 that they talk about are the 4 that I had listed. Where I think that quite a few folks may not have the experience here, which was really kind of the culminating last month of my experience in SkillBridge, is this phase 3 corrective actions. So now that we actually have all the data and we've gathered the root causes and turned those into, corrective or common causes and turn them into root causes, now we can help set up a corrective action plan for the leadership. And what you'll see from this is multiple different examples of kind of saying the same thing. So one of them is more of a traditional corrective action plan, and it gets after not only common causes, but the root causes themselves. And it comes up with a specific corrective action plan that also, gives extent to the cause determinations, right? So again, looking at not just what this cap can fix, but hey, if we're applying this cap to this specific incident, where else do we need to be looking? Because today it was this incident, tomorrow it could be a completely different. And if this cap is only focused on that specific incident, then we may be missing the bubble for proactivity. additional actions to address deficiencies. So this is where we would put in um, a structured way. And again, we're not the experts with the aircraft or with the how they're going to tackle it, but it's a way for us to offer either collaboratively to work with the organization or get them set on a path so that they can take over on their own. But you see here, these are the areas that they should be looking at in order to achieve that corrective action plan. Getting rid of stupid stuff, I'm sure you're probably familiar with that, but it's always good to, excuse me, um, make sure that you tag an owner to each specific, whether it be deficiency or cap overall, so that they know that not only are they in charge of that, but they're also in charge of trying to make sure that anything that does not help the situation or in some cases hinders it, they're going to take actions to get rid of that. And then this phase down here is really set up for the organization itself in order to look at effectiveness reviews. Another way of looking at the same thing, and again, it's really just user preference. I tend to like this one a little bit more. This one does, I believe, a better job of showing where all of the common causes fall within each of the 5 boxes that we grouped the lines of inquiry question into. And you can start seeing a theme here that as you look at the root or common causes tied to the corrective action plans, there are a few that are only getting after one, which, these probably tie quite well into the system level or program level issues that we saw. But then you see these two right here, and these two really show where it's getting after multiple root causes, where it's got multiple corrective action plans tied in together. And so, for my mind, it really draws you into this is where we're looking at the enterprise level issues. That if we can get after these right here, even if we don't get after these 4, the fact that we got after these is going to definitely pay dividends with the other corrective action plans. And so I like the way of showing that as a visualization to leadership and letting them decide which one they want to work with. To sum it up, what I got from this and why the lesson I think for all of us for root cause analysis is that the Air Force has been doing accident investigations for as long as the Air Force has been flying, before when it was the Army Air Corps. They found that a catastrophic failure of the prop rotor gearbox caused this issue. But what Blue Dragon was able to help uncover that really kind of either got swept under the rug or just lost in the translation is that what this really represents is the failure of the overall safety management system and the tri-service communication in order to speak the right requirements to the producers of the equipment, to make sure that the pilots and aircrew had the right indications in front of them to make the right decisions. And then most importantly, to consistently share that knowledge and those lessons learned across the services so that these aircrew can come home safe and get back to their families and live to fight another day. That is a very quick and dirty of the project. I've having done 5 aircraft investigations before. I think the thing that I see about this that really is the most beneficial is that while I have a report, because everybody's going to need a report, and it's about a 50-page report with charts. What this really does is it gives any reader the ability, as long as they understand how to read the chart, the ability to get from alpha to zeta and understand how we came up with what we did, so that not only can they explain that as they go along, but then they can use this as a framework moving forward if and when another incident needs to be analyzed. So I think at this point, with a couple minutes left, that about concludes my presentation for it, and I'll turn it over to Rob to start any questions.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ryan. Very impressive. We were impressed in our own BD3 morning meetings when he presented this for the first time, and I thought it would be a great idea to share it with you all. So.